This you?
Yeah.
Cool. Tell Corn that is baseball, by the way.
Yeah, I think he figured it out. He read the thing.
It's just that's just what the Confederation is called, because it includes softball and baseball both.
If you write anything on your computer, you need to get.
Is that you or me?
Yeah, I was trying to send just a music bed down to Twitter so they have something to listen to while we have break. But YouTube
okay.
keep going to commercials.
That is a nice idea. What is Roquefort dressing?
No idea.
Tell him I will text him when I it's like a blue cheese, when I want to chime in with a question for Jordan.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, Sweet 16 edition. All right, now let me just get this right.
Okay.
Let me pull this softball out of my throat. He's not going to be the softball coach. He'll be the baseball coach. I was just scanning through this thing and I saw softball. It's the 18 and under team has won 4 straight World Baseball Softball Confederation World Cup. So it's a combination organization.
Okay.
I just saw softball and thought, okay, he's just going to coach softball. But no. Mr. Stupid here got it wrong. Jack Leggett will be coaching the 18 and under national baseball team, part of the World Baseball Softball Confederation World Cup.
Let's think about it. What's more gets you confused? Jack Leggett coaching softball or Jack Leggett coaching 19 and under guys?
I don't know. I'm just confused, period.
No, what gets me is
I called Kansas, Kentucky a little while ago, so I'm all over the place.
I guess looking at Jack Leggett's actions when he's coaching his team or older players, he seems not to – I wonder if he's gained any patience in his year off, because some of these guys he's going to coach, they're probably looking at fundamentals they hadn't seen before, and Jack has to walk them through it. Yeah, I see what you're saying. All right, Will is out in Omaha. More from him coming up in just a little bit. Right now, though, it's time for a little give and give. We've kicked go out of the routine here since the Gamecocks are done, so we're going with the give part of give and go. We welcome in former Clemson standout guard Jordan Roper to Sports Talk. I know he's getting ready for the big Sweet 16 game tomorrow night against Kansas, hoping that his guys can take that one more step, well, a couple of more steps, but one step at a time to the Elite Eight next. But Jordan, how are you, my friend? How are you feeling about the way things look for your Tigers?
I'm excited. A lot of positive momentum, a lot of, good things going on in the program. So, a lot of excitement, and, I couldn't be more happy for the team.
Absolutely. I know you're not envious or anything like that, certainly not, but I'm just wondering if you think back to your time at Clemson and wonder, we could have done the same thing if maybe this had happened or that had happened.
Yeah. You definitely think about that. But, right now it's all about, the Tigers right now, today's time. I have my time at Clemson, a wonderful experience, played a lot of big games, won a lot of games, played a lot of close games, played against a lot of great players, great coaches. But, right now it's about the Tigers now, and tomorrow facing Kansas, and with a huge opportunity.
So my take is this is going to be a high-scoring game. You look at these two teams, they can both score a lot. Of course, Clemson played great defense against Auburn, but Kansas is not Auburn. I think they're a much better offensive team top to bottom. Do you see this being something in the 80s? Can you see either team mustering a great defensive stand and holding one team down?
I think Clemson has to come, with that same defensive effort that they gave against Auburn to really, make this a ball game. Kansas is a great team, a historic program. I think they have more conference championships than they have losses at home. And this game being in Omaha, it's 2 hours away from where they're at. So, they'll travel very well, and it'll be almost an away environment. But, I think the excitement will, neutralize that for Kansas. But I think Clemson is going to have to come out with the same defensive effort and, really, disrupt a lot of the things that Kansas does. At the same time, we have to score the ball at the same, clip, shoot the ball at the same clip that we did, against Auburn.
Jordan, greetings from Omaha. How would you handicap the big matchup between Udoka Azubuike and Elijah Thomas?
I like a lot. Of course, I'm going to pull for Elijah Thomas, but with the Kansas Center being a little bit bigger, I think that'll cause some problems for Elijah. Scoring down low, finishing the ball around the rim. But I think Elijah's had a great year. He's a great talented guy, great player, great attitude. He's one of the leaders on the floor. I think he'll be ready to play, and I think that he's excited for the challenge.
I mentioned this earlier in the program, and it seems that when you're successful, especially at this level, the extra pass is so key to offensive efficiency. And Gabe DeVoe and Mitchell driving to the basket tomorrow night, is it tough to make the decision, Jordan, to when to take it right to the hole and when to drive specifically to know that you're going to kick it back out for the three?
I think it's a lot to do with experience. from my freshman to my junior year, you go through it. So for instance, a pick and roll, and you read the defense. But you're in those situations so many different times, you understand what's going to happen, and you just play based on instinct. And I think that's what those guys have been doing all year. Gabe DeVoe, he's a senior, and you're seeing it in his play. He's been in these situations before, similar to Darius Thornwell last year. I mean, he's been in those situations. He has confidence in those situations. So it's not something that really causes him to, really have to think about what he's doing. He's just playing the game at a high level with confidence. Sheldon Mitchell's the same way, high level talent. Then, he was recruited to distribute the basketball. Speaking for myself and, just, think of what those guys would think. I think when you're driving to the basket and you're thinking about making those decisions, it's a lot about reading the defense and what they're doing as opposed to deciding yourself if you want to get that outward shot.
Talking with Jordan Roper, little give and take here on Sports Talk. No give and go. Go is retired for the season. He'll join us again next year, Aaron Lucas. But Jordan is still kicking as the Tigers are looking to take on Kansas in the Sweet 16. And, Jordan, the benefit of playing in the ACC is that you see a lot of Hall of Fame coaches on the other bench, a lot of blue blood programs. You see North Carolina. You play Duke. You play at Syracuse. You play Virginia. So this Clemson team on the biggest spotlight now in college basketball at this particular point in the tournament, facing a blue blood program in Kansas with a coach who's only lost 95 times in his 15 years there. Still, you feel like they won't be fazed by the moment?
Yeah, I don't think that they'll be fazed by the moment just for the pure fact that, just like you said, we play a lot of the big names in college basketball on a yearly basis, sometimes twice a year. And, it's the excitement of being in the Sweet 16 and understanding that you are one of the better teams in the country. At this point in the year, I think that, the name on the jersey doesn't matter. And even looking past this game, if we can for a bit, playing either at Duke or Syracuse, that's not, again, the luxury of playing in the ACC and having that experience of playing against, high-level, players and teams and Hall of Fame coaches. It's not something that comes into a factor because it's something that's routine for Clemson. So I think that's an advantage for us. I don't think Kansas can, rest on the laurels that they're Kansas and they can walk in and teams are afraid of the name on their jersey as they did probably in the first two rounds. So I think that they'll have a challenge with Clemson.
If there's a player out of the usual suspects, the usual big three guards for Clemson that steps up tomorrow, who do you think that is, Jordan, and why?
Outside of the usual ones or just the usual ones?
Just outside of the big three guards.
I think Amir Sims has played really well and Dante Graham is absent. He's hitting, shots when he gets one, outside shot. He's rebounding the ball well. He's running the floor. And defensively, he's doing his job. I think that he'll play well, and hopefully A.J. Oliver comes in or Clyde Trapp comes in, knocks down a few shots, and really add some energy off of the bench.
All right, Jordan. So I know you're picking the Tigers with all your heart and all your soul. What's your brain telling you?
My brain is telling me that it's going to be a good game, but I think the momentum is in Clemson's favor. With a big win, largest victory, in the tournament so far. And, we're playing our best basketball. I can't say the same for Kansas, who really struggled, in their first round game. I like the Tigers' chances. I think we're playing our best basketball, and that's what it's about at this point in the year.
And you hope Clemson doesn't get confused because they look around and they see Duke and Syracuse. This is not ACC Tournament 2.
That's right.
This is the NCAA championship.
Hey, Jordan, thank you, man. And good luck to your Tigers tomorrow night, and we'll talk to you next week. Win or lose, we'll get with you next week to wrap it up or look ahead.
All right, sounds good. Go Tigers.
Thank you very much, Jordan Roper. Now we call it give and take here on Sports Talk. Back in a moment.
And I'm bringing this one out.
Yeah, well.
Ooh. It starts with his voice, I believe. I think that's correct, if you can confirm.
Yeah, let me look. Yeah, he says, some of the best backcourts in America.
Yep. I know you can't talk on the air, but will you give me a cue, or how will that work? Will it just turn me up early?
Yeah. Can you hear if I turn you up earlier? Does it make any different sound or anything?
I don't think so. Nevada leading Loyola Chicago 12-4.
20 seconds, Will.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
The Sweet 16 of the NCAA men's basketball tournament is already underway as Nevada leads Loyola Chicago 15-8 in Atlanta, followed by, of course, Texas A&M and Michigan coming up here in a couple of minutes, as well as Kansas State, Kentucky, and Florida State Gonzaga later on tonight. But here in Omaha, Clemson and Kansas getting ready to play at 7:07. After that, it'll be Duke and Syracuse. Earlier today on Periscope, which you can follow at SportsTalkSC on Twitter, there's a portion of the conversation I talked about with the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks, Brian Haney, and I asked him first about the unparalleled guard play that we will see here, not only in the game tomorrow night, but in both games.
Some of the best backcourts in America are all right here in Omaha this week. You toss in what Duke can bring to the table with Trayvon Duval and Grayson Allen on top of the Clemson and Kansas backcourts. And yeah, they're pretty good up in the West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Villanova regional right now too. But my point is, in terms of veteran guard talent, senior-laden backcourts, and I realize Clemson had some talented juniors in there too, these are a couple of the better ones. And so it's going to be interesting to see if, for Kansas, if their first-team All-American Devontae Graham can return to form, a guy that's averaged 17-7 this season and is in the finals for the Wooden and the Naismith, two awards that Kansas won a year ago. He's not shot it well, with the exception of one game the entire postseason, including the Big 12. If he returns to form, I think Kansas backcourt might have a narrow edge over Clemson's, but Malik Newman's emergence has been a big story too. So I'm really curious to see Newman and DeVoe, and you go back and forth with some of these other guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You know, it's odd. This is not a typical Bill Self-constructed team. Usually he likes to have a 3-guard lineup and then a 4 who can kind of step out and shoot the 3 with a lot of length, and then obviously a number 5. What has it been like watching him kind of play this 4-out offense?
It was easier to do it a year ago when you had Josh Jackson at that 4 spot because he was a guard small forward type, but he was 6'8". Mm-hmm. Now you're doing it with LeGerald Vick, who's closer to 6'5". And so it is different. And what you're going to see a lot of, Will, is a 3-man dribble weave around the perimeter where they get the ball movement going side to side, and then they look for a gap to drive and shoot that gap with dribble penetration. And Devontae is not the rim finisher that Frank Mason was a year ago, but Malik Newman has become that. LeGerald Vick is good at that as a dribble driver, ball penetrator, that sort of thing. And I think that's where we've seen Kansas be able to take on a different shape as opposed to the traditional Bill Self high-low that you saw at Illinois and early in his Kansas days. This team gets up and down the floor. This team averages 82 a game. This team has shot the 3 ball at a prolific rate. They have shattered the school record in 3-pointers attempted and made, not close. And they're averaging 10 threes made a game. So they'll look to drive it with the dribble weave that I talked about, but they also look to set up outside shots with the penetrate and pitch, and they've got 4 really good 3-point shooters. It's rare to have them all clicking on the same night, but when you got 4, that means 2 guys can afford to have an off night if the other 2 step up.
You know, it's odd. Bill Self was asked during the press conference just a couple minutes ago about playing close to home and playing in Omaha, last year. Not that it necessarily played to the detriment of Kansas, but you saw them get run off the floor by an Oregon squad in Kansas City. I'm wondering how much that affects, at least that experience affects this group coming in for some of the guys who are returning.
Well, it's a different feel because a year ago with it in Kansas City and Frank Mason, the National Player of the Year, Josh Jackson, the number 4 pick in the draft, people were almost chalking it up that they were going to make it out to Glendale for the Final Four. Oh, the road's paved. They got this. Oregon's losing their number 2 scorer entering the tournament due to injury. This is going to be, if not a piece of cake, they thought certainly something that was a foregone conclusion. With this regional this year, you don't quite have the home court advantage, but they'll probably still have 10 to 12,000 Jayhawk fans here out of the 18 it holds. And quite frankly, because nobody's really talking about Kansas as the favorite in the region, almost like you get the best of both worlds. You still have the home court edge, but everybody's talking about Duke as the most talented team still standing, and everybody's talking about Clemson as the hottest team after the first weekend. So this is kind of where Bill Self likes it. It's the motivational and the chip on the shoulder card and all that. And if you look specifically at some of KU's best performances this year, they've been away from home when the other team's getting more ink, more love, whatever, like Lubbock, Texas, ESPN College Game Day, the biggest home game in the history of that building for Texas Tech. And Devontae Graham turns in his one shining moment of the regular season type performance that really, I think, catapulted him to first-team All-American honors. This team's been good when the focus is taken off of them and cast on someone else. And I think, as eerily as that sounds to say in this particular part of the country, everybody's talking about Duke this week. And people like Myron Metcalf of ESPN.com are writing about Clemson reseated on the 1 line. And did you see where he had Kansas?
I did.
10. Yeah, you know what? I think that feeds well into the way Bill Self likes to motivate his team. And so it's a pretty good setup, I think, from a Kansas standpoint.
Ryan Haney, voice of the Kansas Jayhawks here. On Clemson, they had an amazing first 2 contests. And, when I asked Bill Self what concerned him more, I asked him whether or not the guards shooting concerned him more or the defense concerned him more. Both. Same question to you. What concerns you more about what the Tigers bring to the table?
I loved his answer. Yes. Yeah. I think more than anything, it's just the fact that you guys have gotten better and better as the season's gone on. So many people wrote off Clemson after Grantham goes out in January, and the way they've really rallied around that and now playing their best ball of the season, the way that from a defensive standpoint they just shut down Auburn has to be concerning. Number 7 in the nation in 2-point field goal percentage defense is concerning. They don't have the thickness of the bigs, but you've got length and you've got athleticism back there. Who knew Elijah Thomas would turn the ball he turned into when he transferred from A&M? I'm curious to see the Udoka Azubuike effect now that he's closer to 100%. We only saw him for 3 minutes in the first round. He changed the game for Kansas more than anyone versus Seton Hall, and now they want to play him upwards of 30 minutes, that is. How does that translate in terms of KU's field goal percentage inside the arc? Because Udoka, I don't know if your fans know this, he leads the nation in field goal percentage and is up for possibly setting an NCAA record at 78%. So he's had a phenomenal year when he's been healthy. And that also makes the guards' jobs a lot easier when there's a force to be reckoned with in the interior. And so Kansas, as I said, shoots 10 three-point makes a game. They love to fill it up. We've not really seen them get super hot in the NCAA tournament from beyond the arc, but specifically how they score from inside the arc, as good as the Clemson defense is, which is the big concern I have. I think that's going to tell the tale on this game, because you're a good defensive team. Kansas is a pretty prolific shooting team. Something's got to give.
It does. And you mentioned Elijah and that matchup with Azubuike upcoming here on Friday, and the fact that, you have a guy in Azubuike who's 280 pounds, who moves well for a guy that size, but even like Elijah, he tried to cut his weight down a lot. And I mean, he even turned into a vegetarian. That's how much it changed for him, as far as just the way his body physique and his conditioning has changed. Do you think that this can get into an up and down game, a run the floor type game? Because you mentioned Kansas' ability to run the floor, and we certainly saw Clemson do that against Auburn.
I think so. You guys typically hold your opponents to the mid-60s in scoring. Kansas at 82 a game. Some sort of give and take has to occur there as well. And if this game's played in the mid to upper 70s, advantage Kansas. Jayhawks do want to get out and push it. They do want to turn defense into offense when they can, and they're a really good transition offense team when you're playing four guards, obviously, that can fly up and down the floor, and all four can handle. But the Jayhawks need to take care of the basketball and not give away live ball turnovers, because you guys can turn that trick just as easy the other way when your defense sets up opportunities for the offense going back the other direction. So I think all that's key. But make no mistake, the guy that has to have a big bounce back is Graham. And I led with that to begin with, because clearly he's the straw that stirs the Kansas drink.
If there's one stat that you're looking at during the game tomorrow that goes in your favor, what is that stat? And what is the stat that would cause you concern going the other way for Clemson?
Kansas is a mediocre rebounding team, even with Udoka Azubuike. And I think as we look at all these teams that are here in Omaha, whether it's Friday night or a potential matchup on Sunday, we're going to have to bring it better on the boards. Kansas got worked over when Udoka wasn't on the floor by Seton Hall. Angel Delgado went for 24 and 23. Nick Collison numbers for Kansas fans back in the day. He did that versus Texas. And the bulk of that was with Udoka out. Now that Udoka's going to play 30 minutes, that'll help. But this needs to be a big rebounding weekend for Kansas. But beyond that, I'd really like to see this Jayhawk team that doesn't live by it, die by it, as the cliche says, but certainly shoots a ton of threes. I'd love to see them really catch fire. They may need to, as good as Clemson defends inside the arc.
All right, Will Pelagic with the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Haney. I agree with Brian. I said it earlier. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think 85 points it might be required to win this thing if both teams are on their offensive games. We'll be right back. The Money Coach, Ka-ching, Ka-ching, is coming up.
You got to run Kansas out of those corners too. They're one of those unique teams that like to shoot threes out of the corner.
It's fine. I wanted to get a rib in on him calling Clemson by just saying he's from Kansas. You don't know better.
Yeah, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Hey, he's not in Kansas anymore. He's in Omaha.
Dorothy.
Well, you know what they say, Corn? What we say in Missouri is Kansas is neither a proper name nor a proper place. I'll do the same routine with the Money Coach.
coach said he wanted to comment on your steak, so he wants you alert.
I'm ready.
All right, let's update what's happening in the tournament. We're underway with Sweet 16 action in Atlanta, where the city, I don't know if you're following this. I mean, it's not a laughing matter. Apparently, all the important major city-run computers and infrastructure and all that stuff has been attacked by some kind of ransomware thing, and it's got some critical parts of Atlanta shut down, apparently.
We have to cough up Bitcoin to
I
buy
don't
yourself
know.
out.
I don't know. But they're playing the Sweet 16 in Atlanta, and it is Nevada up on top of Loyola Chicago 22-14 about midway through the first half. In just a moment, we'll be joined here by the Money Coach. Speaking of money, we request that you check out foundersfcu.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. We welcome in the Money Coach here on Sports Talk to talk money and sports and how the two live together and live without. Fran Halloran.
Good evening. Good evening, Phil. Good evening, Professor and Will. How's everybody?
Good.
We're terrific.
Good.
We're terrific, and we're in the middle of the tournament now, the Sweet 16 portion. And, you know, one of the things is as teams progress, they make more money for their schools and for their conferences. So you talk about – and, you know, there used to be a time in basketball, and they tried to eliminate this. They called it the $1 million free throw.
Oh, yeah.
And then they got together and said, you know, we're going to eliminate that. You know, you're not going to get what was it, Pro? You're not going to get more money as you move forward or whatever. It'll just be one lump sum and take the pressure off the kid, so the kid didn't feel like he was having to make a free throw to advance and make that money. But we all know, Fran, the money is huge. The players know it, and the schools, you know, they appreciate the fact that as they move forward, they make more money.
Well, it's absolutely huge, and I distinctly recall reading this week the University of Maryland team. What were they called? The Ramblers, right? The Baltimore County team, right?
UMBC.
UMBC. Winning that game was good for like $1.5 million for them.
Yeah.
That's a huge payday for a small school that has a relatively small budget. And so you're right. Every single round, the stakes get higher and higher and higher. And in particular, I wanted to talk tonight for just a minute about Duke's game tomorrow night, not necessarily from how much money Duke's going to make, because, you know, when it comes to Duke, the rich just keep getting richer.
By the way, it's the UMBC Retrievers.
Retrievers. That's right. The Ramblers are
Loyola.
The Ramblers.
They're Loyola. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But they went out and retrieved some dough by winning that game over Virginia.
Well, Loyola, just an aside here, that game, winning that second round game, put them into the green to almost $4 million. That's a lot of money for an inner city school like, I say inner city. They got a campus in the inner city. Duke plays Syracuse tomorrow night, and one of the guys on their team, Marvin Bagley III, everybody knows who he is. He's got giant ups, 22.5 points a game. He's a beast, and he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. But do you guys know, and I wonder really, more importantly, does the audience know the story behind the story with this kid and his father in AAU basketball? Are you guys familiar with this?
No. Go ahead.
Let me just tell you real quickly how Nike kind of bought this kid's AAU team. I read an article in the Oregonian today. Jeff Manning and Brad Schmidt wrote this in-depth article about how Marvin Bagley Jr.'s, that's Marvin Bagley III's father, coached his AAU team in Phoenix and eventually in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if y'all realize this or not, but, Nike's elite youth basketball leagues, they kind of compete with local high schools, especially out west, for not only the talent to play the AAU schedule, but also for some of the top coaches. High school coaches leave good paying high school jobs to go coach in AAU. Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nike kind of bought Bagley Jr.'s team for Bagley III. Gave him shoes, uniforms, travel expenses. Not only that, but here's the funny thing about this. Bagley's family, they filed for bankruptcy in 2008 when they lived in Phoenix, Arizona. And 4 years later, after Nike sponsored Bagley III's team, the parents left their working class neighborhood in Phoenix for Southern California. They ended up living in a ritzy gated community with $1 million homes, with homes that went for $2,500 to $7,500 a month in rent.
Hmm.
And the way they were able to do this was Nike and Adidas and Under Armour we know this about the shoe contracts. The colleges have them. They are buying their way into every single aspect of college sports. To put this in perspective, UCLA and Under Armour signed the richest shoe deal to date in 2016, $280 million to wear a pair of shoes, guys.
Yeah.
$280 million
Mm-hmm.
for the rights to outfit the UCLA teams. This
Wow.
is crazy. And go ahead. You were going to ask me a question.
No. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We're listening to you.
No. All I'm going to say here is that tomorrow night, when you're watching Duke play their hearts out, and it's going to be a great game against Syracuse, you got to look a little deeper. You got to notice the shoes these kids are wearing. And my question, and this is where the money really comes into play for me, why aren't the college coaches saying more about this crisis? I mean, even our own Frank Martin has said, in his past, he probably should have said more about these AAU contracts and these camps and these leagues that the teams are essentially buying. They're buying these kids when they're young, and they're getting their loyalty. They're getting their fangs, their claws into these kids when they're 15, 16, 17, and 18. Because let's go back to Bagley a minute. He's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. He's going to get a big, fat shoe contract. And his father even admitted to Sports Illustrated in 2016 that Nike was pretty much helping the family meet their needs month to month because they were sponsoring the family's basketball team. Guys, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can't keep just ignoring it. The college coaches have got to start saying enough's enough. It's not enough to say, I know what's going on. We got to start saying this can't go on anymore. We've got to get a hold of this.
But
here, it's going to be the beast that is it's going to be larger than football.
But here's the problem. And you being a former coach, I mean, you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you. And, college coaches, a good chunk of their salary comes from shoe contracts and apparel contracts. Is added into their contracts. And of course, the feeder, the AAU teams and the relationship they build with these AAU coaches and the others around those AAU programs, that's how you get the players.
Aren't we seeing the other shoe companies do it? Isn't Under Armour kind of doing camps as well? Because they're saying since we can't fight them, we might as well join them and do what we can.
I had a this is something you don't know, but I once had a PF Flyer contract that paid me a pack of bubble gum and some shoestrings.
I know my time is limited, but do you guys know when this all started? Who was the first?
What is Sonny Vaccaro?
Say that again, Pro?
Sonny Vaccaro started this?
That's right, 1980 with who? Who was the coach?
Bob Knight?
Jerry Tarkanian. $5,000
Jerry Tarkanian. Yeah.
$5,000 a year. That's right. $5,000 a year And in 2016, $280 million is what Under Armour spent. They'll spend $280 million over 15 for UCLA's uniform rights.
Wow.
Wow.
Hey,
That's
listen.
a long, long way from home.
I know you're in the money business for individuals too. If people want to holler at you sometime, how can they reach you?
888-779-2557. That's 888-779-2557. Higgins and Halloran is the name of our group, and we do retirement work and insurance work and financial coaching.
Excellent. And we thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
And by then, we'll be to the Final Four. And you talk about the money going up. And then when you get to the Final Four, it's astronomical. And, of course, the NCAA and CBS and TBS, they're all laughing themselves silly, going to the bank to deposit, in the case of the NCAA, the checks they're getting from TV. In the case of the TV, the checks they're getting from advertisers, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we'll be back to talk some women's hoops with Dawn Staley.
No worries. It was unrelated.
Okay.
I'll ask it next week when I'm at the Final Four.
All right.
That was supposed to be funny. Laugh.
Ah.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Michigan up on Texas A&M 12-6, about 6 minutes into their game. They're playing out in Los Angeles. Remind you that our friends at South Carolina DNR will have the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic for you beginning tomorrow and through the weekend at the State Fairgrounds. You'll see a little bit of everything from the mountains to the sea. The event is sponsored by South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. Tickets are online at psclassic.com, psclassic.com. That is a great event, a lot of fun. I recommend it highly. If you are an outdoorsman, you know all about it. But if you're not, but you want to go see the things that outdoorsmen love to buy and play with and enjoy, they'll have everything for you out there to look at. Good thing is, like if you're looking for a boat or an off-road vehicle, anything like that, there's no sales pressure. There aren't salesmen out there trying to sell you something. You have a chance to go and look at it. Then you go to the dealership and purchase it if you find something that you like. All right, USC women now up in Albany, New York, and they'll be getting into the Sweet 16 of the women's tournament. They'll play on Saturday. The women's Sweet 16 actually begins tomorrow night. USC and Buffalo play the first game on Saturday morning, 11:30, up in Albany. Coach Dawn Staley has her team in the Sweet 16 for the fifth straight year. Of course, the defending national champions. So they know their business here. They know how to handle things. And, she and her team are just taking it in stride right now.
NCAA tournament is a hard thing. It's hard to continue to advance. It takes incredible focus. It takes you getting lucky. It takes you just making more plays than the other team. And we're fortunately enough, we've done that.
Dawn, does it feel a little different, even though they are a much higher seed, that they've only lost, 5 or 6 games this season? Do they feel like a different kind of Cinderella?
They're a good team. I think we put the numbers beside our names, but they're a very good basketball team. They're a team in which they got senior guards. They play extremely well together. They play hard for 40 minutes. So regardless, I'm not deeming them Cinderella. I'm deeming them, a team that could beat us. That's a threat to beat us, like any other team across the country. We're going to approach it that way.
You said Sunday night that you were pleased with the way a lot of new faces handled the first couple of games and got you to that place. What have you felt like you had to clean up these past few days in order to get ready for this next step in the tournament?
Well, I think, every game is a different challenge. I just think we got to take better care of the ball, and we did that. I think we just need to play. It's going to come down to, the team that's able to make plays outside of rhythm plays, of plays that you set up and diagram. So the intangibles are going to be key. So we just locked in on making sure we get loose balls, making sure we get hustle plays, making sure that we understand what we need to do and kind of, make sure we don't have any large mental breaks. There's going to be some breakdowns. We just can't have them in large portions of the game.
Does it almost help in tournament time to have your first two be, pretty close in the 4 quarters rather than, winning by 50 in the first two as you go into the Sweet 16?
I don't know. I think the most important thing is to advance. I think this team has played close games all season long. We're a team that's made adjustments on the fly. I think we just got to play. And it doesn't matter to me if we win by 1, or win by 10, or win by 20, as long as we're able to advance at this point.
And how is the mindset for players when you're playing, a team that's an 11 seed, but they've beaten a 6, a 3, compared to maybe playing another top team when it's going to be, all right, we're in this one for a tough battle?
Yeah, we were in this situation last year when we advanced and Quinnipiac beat Miami and I think Marquette. So we're used to that. And we can't just rely on the results that we got against Quinnipiac last year. We got to play the game. And obviously, Buffalo's going to come to play the game, to win the game. And we got to take that same approach.
What does Buffalo do so well, do you think?
They play hard. They're unselfish. They know where they want their shots to come from, and they they stick with that. You know, they don't go outside of who they are to try to make plays. They know exactly where each and every player is effective, and they put those players in those positions.
All right, Dawn Staley taking her team, I'm not going to say red hot, but a pretty hot team. Won 5 in a row. Really picked things up in the SEC tournament, beating Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi State. Kind of messed around against North Carolina A&T. Won a hard game against Virginia. Now they get ready for Buffalo. Things are kind of setting up nicely for them. Now you can't expect Connecticut to get upset like they were in the Final Four last year. I think South Carolina, of course, they got to stay focused on Buffalo, but they have to fully expect that if they can beat Buffalo, they're going to have to slay the giant. They're going to have to play, you know, a game against Connecticut like they've never played a game against Connecticut before.
Well, this is the type of game where you was the song line says you chop up your work into doable doses, and I think they have to play against Connecticut 5-minute intervals. Just chop those 4 quarters in half and say, give me a good 5 minutes here, give me a good 5 minutes here, and then do it that way. And don't hang your head, because that's what they're waiting to see. Connecticut wants to take your will away from you so they can coast. What Mississippi State did last year is UConn never got to their will, and they looked up and they were in a tight ball game and they dropped one.
Hey, Will, back to you now. I want to ask you this question. You know, one thing I love covering college basketball is when South Carolina plays at Kentucky, or we get a chance to get close to Kentucky, or Clemson plays Duke, and North Carolina get a chance to get close to them, like we did last year as South Carolina played Duke. The blue blood programs like Kansas is, I'm always impressed by the way those particular coaches and players carry themselves and try to protect the crown jewel sport at their school. I've never been around Kansas before, so what was it like being around Self and around the Kansas players today?
It's interesting because, you know, it's almost like the way that a football blue blood would take care of itself, like Alabama football would take care of itself in that way. And I think that you do get that sense of that, you know, this is our main thing. This is our main product. And I mean, just from attending a game at Allen Fieldhouse in the past and knowing how much that program means to that university. I mean, it's everything. It's very much a different type of atmosphere walking into a program like that. And you know it from having walked into, you know, Cameron Indoor Stadium at Duke. It just there is a heightened sense of protection that they have for that, and also just a heightened sense of organization. You know, I don't want to say necessarily that they're tighter than a group like Clemson's would be, but you know, this is business trip for them. This is old hat. Whereas Clemson, you know, not that they're looking around and gazing at the ceiling and all that stuff like that. You know, this is something for them where if you look at this game and if you look at this weekend, you know, they almost kind of not only feel the pressure, but are cognizant of the pressure, and maybe that can get to them. Who knows? I mean, it certainly did last year when they played Oregon and Kansas City.
Well, quick synopsis on Kentucky. Here I go again. On Kansas's history, must be the K is on my mind, Kentucky, Kansas. 61 conference regular season titles.
It's a lot.
15 conference postseason tournament titles. 47 NCAA tournament appearances, 29 consecutive. 105 NCAA tournament wins, 14 Final Four appearances.
They only hang those Final Four banners, too. They don't hang those NCAA tournament appearance banners. They only hang the Final Fours and the championships.
They don't put the other ones up, huh?
No, not enough room.
Wow.
Please.
Not enough room. But the other thing is it a prerequisite to have a mediocre to sorry football team to have a great basketball team?
Most places, yes. There are some exceptions. Want to mention that this weekend in Wilmington is the Carolinas All-Star Classic. We're going to give you some coverage of that tomorrow night, and we'll be covering that on Saturday on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. So we here at Sports Talk have not forgotten about the best high school basketball players in the state who will be in action on Saturday. Tomorrow, Willie P. from Omaha leading up to Clemson. More on all of that. Thank you for being with us. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Will.